All right. Good evening and welcome. I call to order the May 24th, 2021 City Council Successor Agency to the Redevelopment Agency Housing Authority regular meeting. Would you all please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, thank you. All right. Do we have any changes to the order of the agenda?
Nothing from staff this evening, Madam Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Are there any reports? Is there a report from closed session, Greg?
There's no report from closed session.
Okay. All right. So the first item under presentations, item 5A, is a presentation of a proclamation recognizing May 2021 as Mental Health Month. We are joined this evening by Clarice Blanchard, Clinical Director at Star Vista. Crystal, is Clarice in the meeting with us?
Let me take a look. I'm not seeing her. I'm checking the public side now. You know, it looks like she's not with us just yet.
Okay, all right. I'm wondering, should we go to the next presentation then and come back?
Sure, yeah, that would be nice.
Okay, so at this point, we'll receive a presentation from the Community Foundation on the Findings Public Art Mural Project. And here with us is Michael Campbell from the Community Foundation. He's the Community Foundation Vice President. Also is Amy Newby, Parks and Recreation Director, and Jessica Yang, San Carlos Community Foundation President. Welcome, Michael. Oh, it's Amy to start us off. Okay. Oh,
yes, introducing them. But thank you, Mayor Farmer Lohan and council members. Amy Newby, Parks and Recreation Director. Wanted to give you guys just a brief background of the work we've done so far with the Community Foundation to get this project to fruition. It was back in the early part of 2021, maybe even late 2020, when the Community Foundation brought this to us and had this potential for this mural project to come to San Carlos. And so right away we knew we were kind of on a time crunch for this project, being that it's a national project. And so, we also at the same time were hearing some chatter in town about public art and murals in particular. And we've talked with the Sister Cities Association and really wanted to then get the commission involved. And in our February commission meeting, as we had a full discussion of potential mural locations in town, I met with some community development staff to talk about possible locations and looking at like the heart of downtown and even South Laurel Street and what walls are, ideal for public murals. And this wall that we landed on was the top priority that the commission recommended. And fortunately, we have the support of the building owner, as well as a tenant and the neighboring business, Bianchini's, whose parking will be temporarily affected during the painting itself and installation of this art. But it was a great discussion with the commission. And, I've been working really closely with the Community Foundation on the city side and community awareness to get this to, come to San Carlos. And I feel really fortunate. I feel like this is almost a once in a lifetime opportunity for San Carlos, the scale of the project. And with that, I'll introduce Michael Campbell, who's going to talk more about findings, the actual project, and about the art that was selected for San Carlos.
Thank you so much, Amy, for the introduction and the background. So I'll go into a little bit more detail about the Findings Project, the mural that we're going to have in San Carlos, and what everyone can expect over the next several weeks. So next slide, please. First, let me just say that we're all thrilled that the Findings Project is coming to San Carlos. This is art with a purpose. And that purpose really spans the following four goals. First is to promote broad public understanding and appreciation for scientific research. Second, to advance awareness and support of women in STEM fields. Third, to inspire young people and encourage them to consider careers in STEM. And fourth, to recognize the incredible discoveries and breakthroughs of our research institutions. Next slide, please. So as Amy said, the Findings Project is a coming together of a bunch of different people. First and foremost, it's a partnership between the Heising Simons Foundation, which is based in Los Altos, and an internationally recognized artist, Amanda Pingbati Pakia. The Findings team selected 10 locations from across the country for these murals, from Brooklyn to Washington, D.C., to Oakland, and soon to San Carlos. So Camelia Pham, who works on both the Heising Simons Foundation and who volunteers for the Community Foundation, brought this opportunity forward, as Amy described, to the Arts and Cultures Commission and to city staff. And then we all worked together to approach the property owner of the Crepe Stop building, whose wall will get painted, and Bianchini's Market. And I'm really excited that they're both excited about the project and are helping us with the logistics during the installation. So next slide, please. So let's get to the really exciting part, the mural itself. You know, what's great about this project is that the artist works with local scientists to inspire her work. In this case, Amanda has depicted the discovery of some of the largest black holes in the universe by a local astrophysicist and cosmologist, Dr. Chung Pei Ma from UC Berkeley. And as you can see in this draft, Amanda weaves in the science and the scientists to make for a stunning image. But Amanda says it art-enabled mural that finds parallels between the sparse luminous matter astrophysicists use to detect black holes with the work that women do in revealing hidden truths about our world. Dr. Ma studies how luminous matter reveals the existence of supermassive black holes, places in space where gravity pulls so much that even light can't escape. These black holes can have the mass of 40 billions of suns. And we only know these hidden giants exist because we can see their outsized influence over our galaxies by studying the behavior and appearance of planets, stars, and space objects we can see. And Amanda goes on to say, likewise, women are often most important agents of illumination. Women celebrate accomplishments and quiet victories that others might overlook. Often it's women that ensure the last minute save, the moment of courage, the act of kindness does not go missed. Women also shine a spotlight on bad behavior and wrongdoings, blowing the whistle and bringing forward things that others have tried to shove in the back. They help us see what needs to be seen, and that's why they're so precious and essential to our world and our future. Next slide, please. So what's next on the project? Well, we're currently scheduled to start on June 12th with prepping the wall, and that work is being kindly donated by Fernando the Neat, a local painter, and the materials are being donated by our local Home Depot store. Then Amanda will engage with local volunteers from the San Carlos Youth Advisory Council, local artists, as well as hopefully people from the commission, the city council, and the community foundation to bring the mural to life over the next 2 to 3 weeks. Once the project's completed, we hope to have to celebrate with an official unveiling to the broader public, perhaps with some local dignitaries or politicians, which we've heard have attended some of the other events or will attend some of the other events. And of course, if you'd like to learn more, feel free to follow the Community Foundation on social media, visit the Findings Project website, or sign up for our newsletter for additional information and updates. So thank you very much for receiving this presentation. We look forward to the very near future. And I know Amy and I are happy to answer any questions you might have Or if we don't know the answers, we can follow the artists or the folks from Heising Simons Foundation.
Great. Thank you so much, Michael and Amy. About how long do you expect it will take for the mural to be installed?
We expect, based on previous murals, for it to be a 2 to 3 week installation.
Great.
It depends a little bit on our ability to recruit and coordinate volunteers.
Great. All right. Well, I just want to thank you and the Community Foundation and Parks and Rec and Culture for bringing this forward. As Amy knows, the first time I sat down with her and took a meeting, I asked her, what are we doing about the C part in the culture? And this is meaningful to me on so many levels. I work in the biotech field with lots of women scientists, and it's just so marvelous to see her story being shared in such a beautiful way with the community. And I think it will spark a lot of conversation, and I think inspire many to pursue, their passions in this area. So thank you so much. And I see a number of hands have been raised. So we'll start with Councilmember John Dugan, then Councilmember Rack, and Vice Mayor McDowell.
Sure. Thank you, Madam Mayor. And I just want to say what a cool project. And thank you, Community Foundation. Thank you, Park Rec and Culture for making this happen. I'm sure, it's a beautiful piece of art, very meaningful, everything Laura said. And it's, I'm sure there was competition to bring this to our community. So thank you for whomever really pursued it and made it happen. This is going to be a great addition to downtown. So thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Rack.
Thank you. And Michael, and thanks to the Community Foundation and Camellia. I know I had a conversation with her, gosh, probably a year or 2 years ago. I know that it's something she's been pursuing and interested in as well. And for the Park and Rec and Cultural Commission, it's awesome. I'll just say I love it, and I'm super excited about it, and can't wait to see it in action. And I'm ready to roll up my sleeves and get messy with the paint. I guess I'm not the best staying in the lines, but I'll do my best.
We'll have to see what the requirements are.
Yes, yeah, maybe.
I may not pass that one.
Start practicing with paint by numbers.
Yeah, we'll have to get city issued overalls from Public Works. Vice Mayor McDowell.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I too just wanted to express my deeper appreciation for the Community Foundation and Amy's team and the Parks and Rec Commission. I think this is a beautiful example of how the city and the public and the Community Foundation can all work together on something that's just going to be a really wonderful addition to our downtown. Amy, I do have a question for you. The topic of murals has come up quite a bit, and I'm just wondering, are we looking at other places for murals too? Because I'm sure this is going to, start quite a bit of interest from the public.
Yeah, so in that agenda item with the commission is we did prioritize about 4 to 6 locations for murals. Some on San Carlos Avenue, Laurel Street, and then I talked about South Laurel down towards Eaton Avenue. And Sister Cities Association approached me just before COVID hit that they were interested in a mural opportunity and bridging our sister city in Japan with San Carlos and creating a mural, and COVID has kind of put a pause on that, but I'm in communication with Yoko from the Sister Cities Association to, plan that out in the next, probably for the next fiscal year. So looking at next summer. And then other than that, I haven't heard from one independent artist about a mural, and, just trying to work through that process with this individual about just kind of requirements and what the city would, essentially need for artists to complete a mural. It is a big project. Mm-hmm. And so, looking at how we can just help provide the information in terms of sample artist agreements with the building owners and logistics in terms of what materials to prep the wall, or then also to facilitate the painting, the lifts, encroachment permits, if it is going to take up any public parking, as this one is going to. So kind of just help facilitating through that process. So, right. We've been focused on this one, and then hopefully in the next, in a year or so, we'll look towards additional murals if it provides the opportunity.
Great, thank you. I know that there's been interest also in our industrial arts district in town, which seems like a good fit too. So I'll send them your way. And please count me in for painting as well. This is very exciting. So thanks for including us.
All right, thank you. All right, so I don't see any other council comments. Are there anyone from the public that wish to comment on this item, Crystal?
Yes, I do see one hand raised. Rainbows, you should be able to unmute.
Crystal,
hello, this is Franz. I didn't really, my name's Franz Marie Lippincott. Thank you for having me attend. I just wanted to say a couple things. That is such great news to keep the STEM moving forward. Y'all are doing great work. I appreciate all the effort and all that you do. Being government officials is really hard. The one thing I do have a question for that I'd like to piggyback on with Vice Mayor McDowell's inquiry. Would you consider, excuse me, I've been masked up too long. Would you consider having a mural at, I believe there's an airport locally in San Carlos, or would you even open it up to the San Francisco airport? Thank you.
Thank you. And
since the city doesn't own any of that property, we wouldn't initiate a mural there. With that said, and learning through all of the this process of a public mural and large public art is I would be happy to have conversations with either staff from either airport if they were considering a mural at their airports.
Thank you, Amy. Crystal, are there any other members of the public who wish to comment on this item?
No, there are no other hands.
Crystal, I can't hear you if you're speaking.
I think she may be having technical issues.
Yeah, that's what I'm gathering.
Can you hear me?
I don't see any hands up on the attendees of the meeting.
Okay, all
but
right.
I'm checking.
Agenda item 5A. I don't know that Clarice Blanchard, Clinical Director at Star Vista, is going to be able to join us tonight. I'll go ahead and read the proclamation nonetheless, because it's an important topic. So declaring May 2021 as National Mental Health Awareness Month, #Hope for Change. Whereas mental health illness is a leading cause of disability, both nationally and worldwide, second only to cardiovascular disease in total impact, and whereas serious and debilitating mental illness and emotional disturbances affect up to 5% of the adult population and up to 10% of our youth each year, and 1 out of every 4 families has a mentally ill or emotionally disturbed family member. And whereas the U.S. Surgeon General's report on mental health found that there are effective treatments for mental illness and that individuals can recover and lead full productive lives. And whereas the stigma and fear of discrimination from others, including employers, prevent many who would benefit from mental health services from seeking help. And whereas increased public awareness of mental health issues may lead to earlier identification and treatment, leading to lower healthcare and correctional costs, increased productivity, and improved ability to contribute to healthier families and communities. And whereas the statewide theme for the 2021 Mental Health Month is #Hope for Change, to remind us to spread hope and rely on the hope that carried us through a year of change. Now, therefore, be it resolved that I, Laura Palmer Lohan, Mayor of the City of San Carlos, hereby declare May 2021 as National Mental Health Awareness Month in the City of San Carlos, to raise awareness and understanding of the importance of mental health and to pay tribute to all who devote their skill and expertise to the cause of better health for our residents. Furthermore, be it proclaimed that we urge our community to strive to ensure people living with mental health conditions know that they are not alone, that hope exists, and that the possibility of healing and thriving is real. All right, thank you.
Laura, am I back? Yay, okay.
Okay.
I do see 2 hands raised, so I'm hoping maybe one of them might be Clarice under a different name. So, Sheila, you should be able to unmute.
I'm not Clarice, unfortunately. I am one of the three people who are on a call to receive the proclamation, along with Captain Christina Bell. So she might be the other hand up. Yep, that's what I thought. So my name is Sheila Brar, and I am the chair of the San Mateo County Mental Health and Substance Abuse Recovery Commission. So on behalf of our commission, I would like to say thank you to the San Carlos City Council for tonight's proclamation. It's not only incredibly important, but incredibly timely as communities are facing increased mental health challenges due to the COVID-19 pandemic. So as we all know, mental health is often shrouded in stigma, and tonight's proclamation is just one example of how we can bring light to mental health, and we can begin to normalize conversations around mental health and mental health struggles and issues. So on behalf of our commission and the patients, clients, and families that we advocate for, thank you so much for tonight's proclamation. I'll turn it over to Captain Bell for any other words.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, City Staff, City Council, and City Manager. You guys know me as your Bureau Chief. However, I'm also a Commissioner on the Mental Health and Substance Abuse Recovery Commission, where I represent the Chiefs and Sheriffs Association for San Mateo County. I'm also a family member to someone who has mental health challenges. So this is very near and dear to my heart that this is being recognized as Mental Health Month. May is the Mental Health Month. We all want to wear lime green or something green, and I challenge everyone to attend or share a mental health event that we have through the county website, which that is www.smchealth.org/MHM. It's about a week left. I believe there's some other activities where we can sign up in the community. And lastly, please talk openly about mental health with others and family and friends. And just a big thank you to everyone in the city of San Carlos for raising awareness and acknowledging May as Mental Health Month. Thank you.
Thank you, Sheila Brar and Chief Bell. Appreciate that. Or any members of council wish to make a comment on this? All right. Well, thank you for all that you do for
through the chair. Sorry about that. We do have one member of the public who has their hand up.
Okay.
So go ahead and admit Sue Data.
Thank you very much. I appreciate the opportunity. I'm actually a member of the Commission on the Status of Women and for San Mateo County, and I want to take this opportunity to take a moment to draw attention to the disappropriate impact on the pandemic has on the women. I want to thank San Carlos and all its city council members for drawing light to this, but I wanted to quote a few statistics and to shed light on the fact that it impacts women in such a major way. 60% of job losses during the pandemic were borne by women. Women were the majority of workers in high-risk jobs such as childcare and healthcare. Women bear the brunt of childcare responsibilities for aging parents or sick family members, childcare when it's no longer available, and specific to the pandemic, homeschooling when schools were closed and or are currently partially in session. Expectant mothers and those with young children have reported a 3 to 5-fold increase in anxiety and depression symptoms. And tragically, women have been the target of dramatic increase in domestic violence during this pandemic. To our women council members, especially Mayor and Vice Mayor, and all the women in the audience this evening, please know, during these unprecedented times come stress, sadness, and anxiety. So you're not alone, and we wish that women will all reach out. Sharing your emotions with supportive listeners can alleviate stress and improve your mood. Practicing self-compassion is a must. Too often we are kind to others and dismissive to our own stress. Please seek out professional help. It's not a sign of weakness, it's a sign of strength. And as the earlier speaker mentioned, you can always go to smchealth.org/mental health month, both with dashes between them. And encourage everyone, not just women and girls, to access this website, which lists a wide variety of free online events happening this month, and they're all free. So presentations are practical. There's yoga, music, art techniques, book reviews, expressive arts, and youth-led discussions. And in addition, mental health and substance abuse services are also described, as well as how to access providers. Thank you very much, and I really appreciate everything that the City of San Carlos is doing for this. Thank you.
Thank you, Sue.
Thank you, Sue. And then we do have one more hand up. Rainbows, you should be able to unmute.
Oh, yes. Thank you again. I'd just like to highlight, on top of not just the government officials that are present and all that you do in the county and city, but I also like to thank, with Chief Bell present, thank you all for your service, keeping the community safe, especially in these times. And hopefully it's like sparked what will be things to learn from so that more better and improved measures that you all have in place and continue to grow with keep the community safe. Mahalo.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Crystal.
And there are no other hands.
Okay. All right. All right. Well, thank you so much for shining a spotlight on mental health as well as the resources that are available for our community. Very much appreciated. All right. At this time, we'll move to item 6, council communications and announcements, which are brief items for members of the City Council regarding upcoming events in the community and correspondence that they have received. They are informational in nature and no action will be taken on these items at this time. I see that Vice Mayor McDowell has an item.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I have 2 quick items this evening. As Vice Chair of the County Libraries Board, I wanted to let the public know that the library is kicking off various new summer initiatives to help accelerate youth learning and literacy. There's a new program this summer called Library Explorers that will be offered at our San Carlos Library. It's free in-library enrichment camp for students in rising kindergarten through 5th grade. So they will be practicing reading and math and social emotional skills, all while having fun. So enrollment has already begun and you can sign up online for that. And I also serve on the board of HEART, which is the Housing Endowment and Regional Trust. And HEART just published 4 online sets of ADU plans that are available for free for the public to download. So these are construction plans that are intended to save homeowners time and money. And again, you can download the plans if you're not sure where to start and you're interested in an ADU, you can check them out. And you can learn more at heartofsmc.org. And they're also all electric and green. So energy efficient ADUs and really some awesome plans. So thank you very much, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. All right. I don't see any other hands up. I have one short item, and that is I learned recently the Community Foundation of San Carlos is hosting a 21-day equity challenge. You can access the program online. It provides an opportunity to learn and grow and expand one's horizons and comes with an opportunity to reflect on those learnings on a daily basis. And it will conclude, the idea is that it concludes around June 19th, which is known as Juneteenth. So I invite whoever would like to participate in this to visit cfsancarlos.org to learn more about the program. All right, so with that, we'll move to public comment. Persons who wish to address City Council on matters not on the posted agenda may do so at this time. Each speaker will be limited to 2 minutes. If the item you are speaking on is not listed on the agenda, please be advised that the City Council may briefly respond to statements made or questions posed as allowed under the Brown Act. The City Council's general policy is to refer items to staff for attention or have a matter placed on a future City Council agenda for a more comprehensive action or report and formal public discussion and input at that time. Crystal, are there any members of the public who wish to make a comment?
Yes, I do see 3 hands. The first one will be Ellen Jacobs-Dooley, followed by Ken Castle. And if you could please use the 2-minute timer bar that will be visible on the screen, that'd be appreciated. Ellen, you should be able to unmute now. There you go.
Thank you very much. And thank you, Mayor Palmer Lohan and council members and staff. Good evening. My name's Ellen Dooley. I'm a resident of San Carlos, and I'm speaking tonight as a representative of Citizens Climate Lobby San Mateo County Chapter. Our request is that the City Council renew its endorsement of the Energy Innovation and Carbon Dividend Act, which was reintroduced in Congress as H.R. 2307. In May of 2019, our City Council adopted a resolution, number 2019-043, to endorse the same bill when it was introduced in the last Congress. To refresh your memory, this legislation is a carbon pricing policy. It would establish a gradually increasing fee on carbon content of fossil fuels and rebate the revenue to American families on a regular schedule. Carbon pricing needs to be part of the strategy that our country considers to reduce carbon emissions in a significant and timely way. All other strategies combined do not reduce emissions as efficiently as a carbon pricing policy. The dividend payments would offset increased energy costs, especially protecting those who would be most affected financially. Benefits not only include mitigating the effects of the climate crisis, but would also stimulate innovation of clean energy technologies. Why should a city council endorse national policy, you might think or ask? Endorsements by local officials and community leaders is in fact what contributes to change at the national level. Other cities in our region, across the state, and even across the country will add their names as they see more and more cities on the list. This aggregation of influential bodies builds the political will to pass legislation. Congresswoman Spear was a co-sponsor last Congress, and we're asking her to co-sponsor the reintroduced bill. We ask that the council adopt a new resolution endorsing the reintroduced bill and convey that endorsement to Representative Spear. And I can provide copies of the resolution and letter if that would assist with the process. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you, Ellen.
Thank you, Ellen. Next up, we have Ken Castle, who will be followed by Amy Hathaway.
Yes, thank you. I wanted to first commend the council for its discussion last meeting about amending and overhauling the Heritage Tree Ordinance and the sentiment that was leaning toward creating an urgency ordinance or moratorium. I want to just encourage you to please move forward with that as quickly as possible. I think, as I indicated, we have people in the neighborhood here that are looking at removing, in one case, a redwood tree that is at least 60 foot high, somewhere on the order of 60 inches in circumference. There is no other city on the peninsula that I can find that would allow, under a protected heritage tree ordinance, a removal of a tree that size. In fact, the comparisons that the staff did at the last meeting needed to have that most important benchmark, which is what is the circumference or diameter of the tree that that requires permitting or that can be removed without permits. And in general, San Mateo, Palo Alto, Burlingame are in the 46 to 48 inch circumference range. So in other words, what we have is a 72 inch benchmark for removing redwoods below that amounts to a license to kill redwoods. And I think this would be a tragedy if the redwood next to my house in my neighbor's yard is removed simply for the expediency of having some kind of new landscape or facilities for his kids. I hope his kids grow up one day to understand and appreciate trees, but too many people that are moving into our community seem not to be committed to that. And a few that live here seem not to feel that trees are important, but in White Oaks they are. So I would encourage you quickly, get on top of this, get an urgency ordinance, and let's stop this slaughter of the trees. Thank you.
Thank you, Ken.
Next up is Amy Hathaway, followed by David Tusman. Amy, you should be able to unmute. There you go.
Okay, I apologize. Can you hear me now?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, excellent. So good evening, Madam Mayor and San Carlos City Council members. My name is Amy Hathaway. My family and I have lived in San Carlos for 8 years. We have 2 children and believe this community is the perfect place to raise a family. We find one of the things that makes San Carlos great is the quality parks. We are neighbors of the Black Mountain site and are well aware of the large housing development application coming before the city. We were supportive of retaining these parcels for public open space back in 2015, and we still remain hopeful that at least some of the land can be preserved. I think there are a few different ways to make that happen, whether it's through another bond measure or by other means. I hope that you might consider a path forward and ensure development in San Carlos remains balanced and that very rare open space can be retained for the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Amy.
Thank you, Amy. David Tesman, you're up next. You should be able to unmute. There you go.
Am I unmuted?
Yes.
Great. Okay. Hello. Good evening to the council. And, thanks for giving us the opportunity to speak. My name is David Tusman. I'm a resident of San Carlos and a member of the Peninsula Young Democrats. And I'd like to read a brief intro of our policy platform on transportation. We believe the current climate crisis is exacerbated by our extreme dependency on cars and our limited public transportation and bike infrastructure. The solution requires making public transportation an attractive, affordable alternative to cars, financed by dedicated public funds, and growing our network of safe bike routes. So I say that in reference mostly to the bike part of it, because I recently noticed the update of direction at the Arroyo and Cedar intersection with the new bulb outs, which I think are a great improvement for pedestrian safety to reduce the distance of the crosswalk. But I was really honestly appalled to see that now the direction is that bikes have to completely dismount and walk through the sidewalk. And I know a month or so ago when the plans were more finalized, more nearing finalization, and a few bike advocates came out, and I think we're rightfully alarmed that the updated design reduced street space, which forces bikes and cars to take up a similar amount of space. But it just seems like really hostile design and discouraging of bicyclists to now, it seems shoehorned in this dismount area with no curb cut of telling bikes like, no, you don't belong here. This road is for cars, when we already prioritize cars everywhere throughout our city. And it's also implying that we cannot ask drivers to consider non-cars on the road, that we can't trust them, which might be true, that we can't trust them to look out for bikes and share the road, which various bike route. Yeah, did I go over time?
Yes, thank you. If you could wrap up.
Okay. So I what was my wrap up? I'm thrown off now. I'm curious if the design was based on examples of existing functional intersections like that in similar areas, because it really seems out of left field, and I'm really disappointed about it. So that's all. Thanks.
Thank you, David. Jeff, if staff could follow up with David on that, that would be helpful.
We'll reach out to him and explain a little bit of the history of how that recommendation got added to the project.
Great,
As
thank
I
you.
believe, and Stephen can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that recommendation came from our local bike group. So, but we'll reach out and have that conversation.
Great, thank you, Jeff. Crystal, anyone else?
Yes, we have 3 more now. Up next is Lisa Wellman, followed by Sonia Elks. Lisa, you should be able to unmute. There you go.
Good evening, Madam Mayor and council members. My name is Lisa Wellman. I've been a San Carlos resident for over 20 years. I have 3 kids, ages 12, 16, and 19. My family loves this community, and we want to ensure it remains a place with great quality of life for residents of all ages. I understand that a developer is about to present the city with a large housing development on the Black Mountain site along the Alameda. I come before you tonight because I'm interested in the possibility of at least some of that property being earmarked for a park or open space. This way we retain balance of the housing and open space. This site seems like the perfect place for that. I wonder if the council would consider such an option. I know my family would be very much in support of it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Lisa.
Thank you, Lisa. Next is Sonia Elks, followed by Debbie.
Hi, council members and mayor. This is Sonia. Thank you for taking my call. I want to second what Ken said, what Amy said, what David said, and what Lisa said. Very briefly just add that the bike community to the extent that I was involved with those recommendations for the modifications, do not agree with the rubber curbs as they are currently there. We do not agree. We're very clear that the dismount area is not the default way. I was appalled to see the, first of all, I think the intersection is beautiful. I love that it's more pedestrian friendly. I think the city did a fantastic job on those elements. And I was very disappointed that there's no increased safety, but I was also relieved that my initial fears about the extent of the curb cuts were not as severe as initially anticipated. So, you know, I apologize that I didn't know more about curb cuts and for my naivety, but I was really disappointed to see that there was this very distinct, or very, very strong recommendation that the default way to get through that intersection is to dismount. We were so clear, so clear. And I'm saddened that so many things got lost in translation. I'm not exactly sure where to go with that. I'm kind of afraid to speak up anymore because I feel like it didn't get through. But the intersection is beautiful. There's no question. And I think we can go forward from here. And I appreciate that a lot of fantastic work was done for this intersection. I want to keep moving forward, and I want us to work together and, you know, continue to try to make things better and extend whatever I can to be helpful, not harmful, even though I'm not exactly sure how to do that. Appreciate everybody's input. Thank you.
Thank you, Sonia. And last we have Debbie. You should be able to unmute. There you go.
Good evening, council members. I would just like to join in what Mr. Castle had to say about the tree policy. Our neighborhood, people walking around all the time comment about the loss of trees from all of the lots where new construction is going on. So to the extent that we could change the tree policy, especially for the redwoods, to decrease the circumference where they couldn't cut down a redwood, that it's no larger than 46 inches or like 48, I would greatly appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you, Debbie.
Thank you. And that looks like our last speaker.
All right. Thank you. Councilmember Reck. Adam, we can't hear you.
Oh, sorry. I thought I was trying to unmute. Lower my hand and do that at the same time. See, I can't, obviously, like walking and chewing gum at the same time. I just want to follow up, Madam Mayor, on a couple of comments we received today. And I know we received an email this morning, earlier today, from Gene Daner on the Black Mountain property and over there. I mean, I'd be interested in taking a look at the two properties there, the O'Leary property and Black Mountain property, maybe get an appraisal from the city, if that was something staff could do to at least understand what something like that might look like, given that there seems to be some community interest. So I just want to raise that and see if my colleagues are interested as well.
Vice Mayor McDowell.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. A resident reached out to me last week and asked what was going on with that property, and I'm not really sure what our options are right now. So I would support Adam's request and at least look into what our options could be at this point.
Okay, thank you. So it looks like there's no further comments from the rest of council. So I guess at this point we'll move on to consent calendar. Does anybody want to remove any items from consent calendar? Councilmember Collins?
Yes, Madam Mayor, I would like to remove item N.
Okay. All right, Councilmember Rack?
I'd like to remove item K.
All right. Vice Mayor McDowell?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm going to recuse myself from item L because one of the streets that is listed is actually my street. So I'm going to recuse myself from that vote. I don't know if that needs to be pulled or you guys can do it last without me.
All right. So let's see. I'm just trying to think how to do this because we've got items A through J and M and O that I could entertain a motion on at this point in time. Greg, did you have a comment?
I just wanted to say that you should pull the item L to consider it separately based on the requests from Vice Mayor McDowell.
Yeah, so there's three items that we'll pull. So if we can do the motion with items A through J, item M and O.
Madam Mayor,
Sure.
I'll move that we approve the consent calendar items A through J and M and O.
I'll second that.
Okay, thank you. Crystal, could you call the roll?
Councilmember Collins?
Yes.
Councilmember Dugan?
Yes.
Councilmember Rack?
Yes.
Vice Mayor McDowell?
Yes.
And Mayor Parma Lohan?
Yes. All right, so then why don't we then take item L, and Vice Mayor Crystal will let you know when we're back from that, and then I imagine we can talk about items K and N. All right, so Adam, do you want to, I'm sorry, I'll take a motion for item L.
I move that we approve City Council consent calendar item L.
Second.
Okay, Crystal, can you call the roll?
Councilmember Collins?
Yes.
Councilmember Dugan?
Yes.
Councilmember Rack?
Yes.
And Mayor Parma Lohan?
Yes. All right, so Crystal, can you let Sarah know we're done with all of that, and then?
Yes.
Councilmember, we'll wait till she gets back. All right, Councilmember Rack, with item K, do you expect this to be a brief conversation, or do you want to move it to later in the discussion?
I don't think it'll take long. I don't have an issue with the overall budget. What I don't want to do is I'm not really willing to support the $150,000 for the downtown officer at this point. To me, I feel like the way we originally had more funding set up in a more consistent schedule. To me, it's been sort of inconsistent in terms of the officer being down there. I've heard from residents, from the businesses, that they don't see an officer on a consistent basis. I don't see anyone down there ever, and so I'd love to get some data from the chief first about when are they down there? What are we getting for a service? What impact are they making before we start paying for that? Frankly, I would love to pay for a full-time officer there and have a more robust schedule. But to me, just sort of haphazardly sort of doing this, not fully funding it or having a plan in place just seems sort of not good financial work on our end. So I'd like to support it minus the $150,000 and have the chief come back and the city staff come back with a proposal of how we sort of either fully fund a full-time officer or a program that has some consistency around it.
Vice Mayor McDowell?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I would support that. I would like to, I think just our job is to kind of take an accounting of how the downtown services deputy went last year and kind of understand a little more data and the hours that were used. It's unclear to me if there's spending left over at this point. But I also don't want to, inhibit enforcement of downtown this summer. So if it's possible to bring back a report to us of just kind of how things went over the last year, the hours that were down there, what enforcement actions they were able to take because they were there. I would just really be interested in hearing kind of a report out before we fund that project, before we fund that service again.
Councilmember Collins?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I think before we go any further, I think it would be good to hear from Chief Bell as to how this might be helpful or not helpful at this point. So maybe Chief Bell could fill us in.
So as everyone knows, for this fiscal year, it was reduced from 250 to 150,000. So we had to be strategic with our funding, and it was not consistent every weekend or every hour of the original plan, which was the 10 to 10 on Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. So I can say that we, because we were fiscally responsible, because we knew that things would start opening up again towards the end of this fiscal year, we do have enough funding to staff the DSU for the rest of this fiscal year, which we've already had the signups and people are signing up for. How we track that at the end of their shift, they report to the sergeant of how many business checks that they conduct, as well as how many citations and any and all activity that they're doing. So that is manually put into our shift notes, and then after that, those are archived, so those are accessible, but will take staff time to retract or get. So in the initial proposal with the DSU unit, we had the flexibility of not only being in uniform but also undercover. So you may or may not have seen us, but we were out there. And I can say, using approximations of how much money we've used so far, which is $59,000, that's approximately 337 hours for the fiscal year. I was able to get that math for us today, but that is all the stats that I have for you today, but I'm more than happy to go back and research all of that for you and provide the council report if appropriate.
Yeah, so I'll just kind of add, I'll get back to you in a second, Adam, but from my perspective on this, I think I would like to better understand actually what tasks were that they performed, and if we had particular hotspots with particular establishments. At this point in time, I'm not comfortable discussing fully funding a full-time position for this until I understand that, because I would want to make sure that the service provided is relatively equally distributed, if you will, throughout the community. So I want to just better understand the dynamics with this role, and I would be in favor of kind of leaving some funds in, with this current pilot program, and so that there's no discontinuation of service. So,
Madam Mayor, if I may say
yes.
one thing to that. So our challenge obviously was COVID. So I don't think that our statistics are what they would have been had not all the restaurants been open the entire time with the full amount of foot traffic and vehicle traffic. So, it was a one-off year. So that was all I would like to add about that. Thank you.
Understood. Thank you. All right, we'll go to Councilmember Rack and then Councilmember Dugan.
Sure. I just, thank you, Madam Mayor. And Chief Bell, can you so the hours, are you talking about for the current fiscal year, it was 339 or 399? Is that? It
was approximately 337 hours for this fiscal year. So that would be starting July 1st.
Of last year until today or something at this time?
As of May 1st.
So as of May 1st. So we're talking
July 1st to May 1st.
Okay. So it seems like it's maybe 10 hours a week that we're getting of services at most. Is that kind of what, on average, what we're talking about?
Average, yes, if we do the math.
I mean, I know some might be better than others. I'm just sort of, I don't know how many, I couldn't tell you how many weeks from July to May. So, okay. Okay, thank you. That's helpful. I mean, I'm okay with supporting the funding, just as long as we have a plan to come back, because I don't want this sort of, we're getting some service here, some service there. I would like some consistency in a plan to do this. And I mean, from my end, I'm willing to support more funding, because as more and more activities come downtown, we're talking about long-term street closures. I just think we need to think this through a little more.
Yes, and since it is a priority of the council, we did have our other deputies flood the areas of downtown, and our CSOs were also walking down there. We've just recently deployed volunteers that they've come back from COVID, so they are now back on our streets as well. So we were very mindful of that, and we did bring our deputies down there, even though they weren't assigned to the DSU unit that day.
Got it. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Dugan.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor. And and thank you just there, Chief. That was a question I had, was how much you're able to flex the rest of the force to provide the services down there. So that's helpful. So I'll just ask, sounds like there's some appetite for even more funding, but in your view, is the currently proposed budget 150,000? Is, I know it's hard to determine what post-COVID is going to mean, but is that the right amount of budget from, your perspective? Was that a compromise number? Is that, what do you think we need down there?
So just doing the math for the hourly rate that would be charged, it's about 857 hours with 150,000 funded. So obviously we're flexible with that. It's not like we're just going to put somebody out on a shift for the full 12 hours. Like if we have something going on, then we'll put 2 deputies at 4 hours each. So that's great to have that flexibility with the funding. As I've said before, it'd be great to have a full-time deputy down there so they can, really be the face. But that I believe is, we've already set the budget, so that would have to come in a little while. But I think that we can do great things and be more flexible with what we have.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that. I guess I would be of a mind to approve the budget as it's been stated, but keep an eye on it, and we could always further fund mid-year. I believe if this post-COVID doesn't go the way we expect it will.
Thank you.
Okay, so so where do we proceed? I guess at this point, discussion has been had, so I'll call for a motion for this.
I'm happy to make a motion.
Okay.
I move that City Council adopt a resolution approving Amendment 2, Exhibit B-1 to the Law Enforcement Services Agreement with the San Mateo County Sheriff's Office, including the fiscal year 2021-2022 payment of $9,906,574 for police services, with an option to increase by an additional $50,000 for DUI services, and request that the police department come back with a plan to fully fund or to provide adequate funding for the downtown services unit.
I'll second it.
Okay, Crystal, can you call the roll?
Councilmember Dugan?
Yes.
Councilmember Rack?
Yes.
Vice Mayor McDowell?
Yes.
Councilmember Collins?
Yes.
And Mayor Parmer-Lohan?
I'm going to vote no on this. I don't feel like I have a good understanding of what the tasks are at hand, and if there's particular hotspots. I don't want us to be providing full-scale police services if there's just a couple of establishments that are drawing most of the attention. So because I don't know what I don't know, and we're in a budget tight year, I'm going to vote no on this. Okay, next item is 8N.
And if I could jump in just before we move on, just to clarify, because I think I did hear a majority of the council express an interest in getting a detailed report on the activities of the downtown police program over the last year, and options from the police chief about how you might consider the program moving forward. Is that correct?
Yes, for me.
Yes, I was supportive of that as well.
And by the way, my vote was sort of a reluctant yes, because a lot of me agrees with Laura, but I wanted to move this along. I don't like not supporting more funds, so for police work. So
yeah, and I'm pretty sure that's what we just approved. So yeah.
Very good. Thank you.
Okay, all right, so the next item, authorize the mayor to sign letters on behalf of the city council to our state. I'm sorry, do we, Greg, do we need to take public comment on any of these motions at this point, or procedurally?
If there wasn't any public comment before we went, but if Crystal, if anybody comes on, I mean, we should take comment at that point.
Yes, I do see one hand that just came up.
Thank you.
So we'll go ahead and take that now. Debbie, you should be able to unmute right now.
Yes, thank you very much. The item that we were going to discuss tonight was removed from the calendar, and I want to make a comment about that. It has to do with Senate Bill 10 that was discussed at the last meeting on legislation. Senate Bill 10 does two things. It lets a simple majority of a city council, 3 members, overturn voter-approved ballot initiatives that protect open space and land and protect neighborhoods from increases in height limits and setbacks. It would allow the city council, 3 out of 5, to override zoning laws, to allow multiple family homes projects up to 10 parcels within a half-mile of transit, major bus routes, and areas deemed job-rich by state regulators. I oppose it because it does not require developers of the city to invest in infrastructure improvements to support the dramatic increase in housing. It does not propose an urban plan. It accelerates climate change. It does not require developers to include affordable housing. It penalizes existing environmentally responsible property owners who've invested solar panels and other improvements when developments are built next to them. The main thing that concerns me is that we're close to the bay and 4 creeks, and we have rising sea level issues, and this eliminates completely environmental review and makes it exempt. It doesn't matter whether the state is controlling the zoning or whether the city council is. It creates uncertainty for property owners who never know if their single family lot is going to be upzoned to 10 by the neighbors right next to them. So we ask that this be placed on calendar for discussion so there can be public comment. The city council did not discuss this at the May 10th meeting, and it was not on the slide of what the city supports or opposes. We would like to know the city's position. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Debbie. All right, so Ron, Councilmember Collins, I believe you pulled this item, so.
Yes, I did. Actually, the only thing, the only portion of this item that I wanted to pull or to not send was the letter in support of SB 10. I think it's premature. The bill could change, and I think we all need to know more about it. I'm not sure that this was our intention at the last meeting. So there's a lot more to know. I will point out that I spoke with our new state senator today, and Josh Becker, and he indicated to me that with regard to SB 9, even though there appear to be enough votes for it, that they are still proposing amendments and still trying to make changes to it. I can't imagine that with SB 10, something similar might happen. So really, I don't think that we should take a position either way right now. I think no position, no letter is probably the best option. That's really the primary reason that I wanted to have it pulled. The other point I'll make is that I did try to look for the language in the law that with respect to city council 3/5 vote overriding publicly purchased land. I could not find that language. So if that language is there, I would most welcome, but that's not the reason that I wanted to pull this. I just don't think that this particular bill is ready for us to take a position on yet. So that's why.
Thank you. We'll go Vice Mayor McDowell, Councilmember Dugan, and Councilmember Rack.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I want to thank Debbie for calling in, and we have received quite a bit of public comments on this item, and I'm glad that Ron pulled it. I'm a little confused about the meat of the letter because it says that we support it in concept, but then raises 2 pretty big concerns with the legislation. So it would be my preference that we come out opposing it because of the concerns that are raised. And I assume that staff did a great job researching it. But since staff says that concern number 1 says that it would eliminate voter approved restrictions and it goes too far, I think that is a solid reason for us to oppose this because of these pretty serious concerns. So that's where I fall on it. I'd rather oppose it. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Councilmember Dugan.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yeah, I appreciate that we pulled this one as well. I will say I've always looked at these from the context of is the state removing yet more local control over zoning, yes or no? And this one, it was hard for me I didn't see that. So I didn't initially conclude that we should oppose this, but given this is sort of, and even the sponsor of this bill, and it's sort of in a batch of bills that seem to be in the direction of removing local control, I certainly understand why our community is concerned about this one. I'm also realistic. I don't think a letter from San Carlos, unfortunately, will have a lot of sway on this bill in Sacramento one way or the other. So I generally resist us spending a lot of staff time and a lot of council time, looking over and trying to understand these dozens of very complicated, seemingly ever-changing bills. So I would support just pulling this letter and not taking a position on SB 10 and approving the other letters.
Thank you, Councilmember Dugan. Councilmember Rack.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I thank you, Ron, for pulling this as well. I have serious concerns about this bill. Anytime you want to, I think this does take away local control. And if you want to, I think taking away the rights of citizens and a voter approved ballot initiative, I think is just the wrong approach to do it. It just says what the people of San Carlos say doesn't matter. And so I would prefer to oppose this, but at a minimum, I do not want to support the letter. So if the will is the council is to just not send a letter, I'm okay with that, but my preference is to send an opposed letter.
Okay, thank you, Councilmember Rack. So I concur that I don't know that this letter captures the entirety of the issue. I think from my perspective, I do support transit-oriented development. We're also in the midst right now of updating our housing element. We're getting lots of public input. So I'm in favor of pulling this letter and holding on this for now until we see how it shapes up and give it consideration at another time.
Great. I'll go ahead and move to approve City Council consent calendar item N with the letter regarding SB 10 pulled.
Second.
All right. Crystal, can you call the roll, please?
Councilmember Rack?
Yes.
Vice Mayor McDowell?
Yes.
Councilmember Collins?
Yes.
Councilmember Dugan?
Yes.
And Mayor Parmer-Lohan?
Yes. Okay, thank you for the discussion. The next item is reports to council. Reports to council are updates to key city projects and issues by staff and or city council subcommittees. They are informal in nature and no action will be taken on these items at this meeting. The first item is receive a report on the Public Works Department capital improvement project process. And I understand Public Works Director Stephen Machida will be joining us this evening. Welcome, Stephen.
Good evening, Madam Mayor. Thank you. And City Council members, Stephen Machida, Public Works Director. Yes, so this item, what we wanted to do is present kind of the process that we follow to deliver capital improvement projects. So I could move. Crystal, okay, thank you, Crystal. So the project presentation objective is really to look at a high-level view of how we deliver our capital improvement projects and what process that we use. So we're hoping that this explanation of the CIP process with proposed amendments will provide the council with some increased understanding of how we manage expectations and our scheduling of the projects, identify new public input opportunities, and then identify and manage cost implications of changes requested during the process, whether it's actually during the design or actually during construction. Next slide, please. So what would probably best illustrate this process is actually I'd like to use the recently completed San Carlos Avenue Pedestrian Safety Improvement Project. Next slide. So this is the actual project schedule. And so I'm actually going to start at the milestone of doing the public outreach. So this assumes that we already hired the designer and they prepared the preliminary design or the 35% design level. So as you can see, in January and April of 2019, we actually prepared or performed the public outreach where we had two public meetings, which were really well attended. Then subsequently, in March of 2019, we actually started the environmental clearance. Basically, after receiving the public comments from the public meetings, we were able to really define the project a little bit closer, which allowed us to move forward with the environmental clearance or process. At the same time, we actually had the designer actually start the 65%. So basically, it went from 35% design to 65% design. Now, the 65% design typically is plans and a very conservative engineer's estimate of the project. So basically, they do the layout of the plans itself, but their quantity takeoffs, so the amount of asphalt, the amount of sidewalk, the length of sidewalk, may not be very fine-tuned. And so it is reflective in the cost estimate. So from March to May of 2019, we actually had the consultant prepare a design, and they submitted the design, the 65% design, back to staff. We in turn kind of reviewed that design, added our comments, and then submitted it back to the design consultant, starting in May and going to June, where they actually took our comments, so this is staff comments, took our comments and then started to redesign or add any changes that might have come as a result of our comments. They in turn return the 95 back to our council, or excuse me, to staff once again. And then we prepared our comments and then returned our comments back to the designer in June of 2019 for the 100% design submittal. Now, the 100% design, that's pretty much at the final design. So the design is pretty much ready to be constructed. The plans are finished. The specifications are all written. That's kind of the legal documentation of how to construct the plans. And then the estimate is kind of the finalized. Next slide, please. So after the 100% submittal, we actually advertise and bid the project. So this happened in July and September 2019. Typically, we take about 2 to 3 months to actually do the advertisement as well as the bid process. So in September of 2019, we actually went to council to award the project. And then after the award, it usually takes about 2 to 3 months before the contract can start. Basically, we have to receive the signed contract, get all the bonds, insurance submitted before we allow the contractor to start. And then subsequently, the construction started in November and completed March in 2021 with final inspection in March 2021 in the project closeout. So this actually process is very common to most agencies. I think, it's a very successful process. And so that's typically what most agencies use. But what we want to do is maybe improve on this process. But before we do that, let's take a real quick review of some of the slides or what we actually delivered in San Carlos. So next slide, please. So as you can see, here's the public outreach. These, again, I mentioned we had 2 public meetings that were very well attended, and I thought it turned out very, very well. I think we were able to answer a lot of the questions that the public had and how the improvements were going to affect their properties. Next slide, please. So here's just some photos of the actual construction as it kind of occurred. Next slide, please. And then here's the finished project, which I think you all seen already. Next slide, please. So as I mentioned, I'm going to use the San Carlos Avenue pedestrian or safety and pedestrian study as an example of how, some of the changes that we would like to do and how it would affect the schedule. So we do a little side-by-side comparison. So, similar to what the previous discussion or previous model that we had, this is assuming we already hired the designer. They've already prepared the preliminary design. So as you can see, the first 3 boxes in yellow, they're the same dates that we had that we described before. So after the 65% design in March to May in 2019, the design consultant would submit their design package to us. So this is where the changes are. And so the changes are reflected in the red boxes. So in May to June, we would actually receive the design. Staff would actually review the plans itself and develop our comments, but we'd also go to the council and to public for a check-in, as we call this check-in. And this will allow the community to kind of make sure that we're kind of going on the right track of the design itself. So in June of 2019, we would bundle the comments back and send it back to the design consultant, following very similar to the 95% design in the previous model. There, they would kind of update the design itself and then return it back to us, staff, in the September timeframe or August timeframe. So once again, we'd have another checkpoint. So this is after 95% design itself. Again, we would have an internal check review as well as go back to council as well as the public to have another check-in on the design itself. We bundle those comments back and send it back to the designer for the 100% design. Next slide, please. So the last input is we would go back to council. In this case, or on the schedule, would be in December of 2019, where the council would approve the design and construction documents, as well as authorize us to advertise the project for bid. So for the following 5 boxes that you see are the same boxes that we kind of described before. It's just that they were kind of pushed out a little bit as a result of some of the inputs, 3 inputs, check-ins that we had previously. So in January and March of 2020, we would advertise a bid, council would award the project, we go through construction, we'd have final inspection, and then a project close off about November 2021. So next slide, please. So just to do a comparison, so as you may recall, the original project schedule started, the public outreach started in January of 2019. Construction started in November 2019 with the final closeout project of April 2021. So using the amended schedule or project schedule that we're proposing, the public outreach still remains January 2019, but we do have those 3 input check-ins between the public outreach and construction. So the construction actually starts in June 2020. So about 6 to 7 months after kind of the previous model that we had talked about, with the final closeout of November 2021. Again, about 7 months after project closeout. Next slide. So the amended process. So what we proposing is that, really does allow these check-in points for the council and community. So one of the advantages that we're seeing is in many instances when we go through the outreach as well as construction, in many instances, council as well as the public, they may form their comments, but they may not receive the resulting improvements until 12 months later. And by that time, many times they forget what they actually said. By doing these intermediate check-ins, we estimate we'll probably get a response back to them in 4 to 5 months. And that consistently kind of feeds back to the public of what we're actually trying to accomplish. So one of the things that we do, and we want to kind of forewarn the council, is anytime you can actually identify those changes early in the process, those changes will be less expensive than if we go further along into the design process itself. And it kind of makes sense. You could actually make the changes on paper a little bit faster than when you're actually during construction. And that kind of leads to the next bullet, what changes identifying during construction. They're going to be the most expensive because, number one, we've already awarded the contract. The contractor knows that he has the project. And so although he can negotiate some changes that we have, usually, we don't have as much leverage as we did before we awarded the contract. So what usually happens is the cost for the change will be expensive and potentially we could have project delays. The other thing that we have to be at least cognizant of is by actually adding more check-in points, it's going to extend the contract delivery time. So that could impact grant deadline requirements and reimbursement. So we'll just have to kind of make sure that we kind of schedule the completion date appropriately so that we actually, meet all these grant deadline requirements. And then lastly, there's some projects that really don't lend itself to having multiple check-ins. And so what we're recommending, or what I'm recommending, is using an abbreviated version for projects that cannot be changed or are time sensitive or such as emergency work based on sewer main, lateral storm drains, and basic street rehabilitation projects. So for instance, on the lateral projects, you know, we know we have, when we replace the lateral, we know we have a starting point, typically at the property line cleanout, and at the sewer main. So those are the 2 points that we can't change. So we know how we're going to make that repair. However, it's going to be at the same location as the old lateral. Similar to sewer main work. Basically, you have manhole to manhole. You're going to replace that pipeline, and it's probably going to be very close, if not in the same location as before. So, you know, to have multiple check-ins, I'm not sure you're going to really gain a lot, other than, you know, we do want to have, you know, continue to have the outreach with the public early on, and maybe have like one check-in point, perhaps at the 65% design. Next slide, please. So what's before you is, you know, council could accept the amended CIP delivery process. That essentially means that we're going to be adding those 3 check-in period points on all CIP projects, except for a few minor projects that we have. Do not change the CIP delivery process or provide staff with alternate direction. And with that, that concludes the presentation. I'd be happy to take any questions that you may have.
Great, thank you, Stephen. I see Councilmember Dugan has his hand up.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you, Stephen. I appreciate you guys have obviously taken some quiet time to consider this important issue. You know, we had a couple projects. You know, so many projects go really well, really meet expectations. We had a couple recently where I think the public did feel a little bit surprised, and I think you've identified the issue, which is, you know, good public outreach, input received, but then the final plans come out and the public is wondering if they were fully heard or not. And so my observations are, you know, this new process, I think, will certainly achieve the objective of ensuring the public and council have an opportunity to impact the design before it's solidified through the bid process. So that's great. I guess I'll just say I'm a little surprised you're recommending 3 check-ins. I can see where that is a good idea, particularly impactful or particularly high-profile projects. And I understand you've identified a couple cases where that might not be practical. I mean, I would say, you know, personally, I would give you even more discretion than that, even if there isn't an external reason that all 3 check-ins aren't practical. I would still allow some discretion, you know, as long as every project at least has 1 good check-in with some public notice and input before it goes out to bid. You know, I think we'll have made a lot of progress. Whether it's 3 whole check-ins, I guess we'll all see if that's overwhelming or not. I guess my question to you is I mean, is that right? You think almost every project will need 3 check-ins like that?
Well, as I kind of mentioned, you know, there's some projects obviously that I believe probably, you know, would make more sense to do more of the abbreviated. And I think, you know, I listed the sewer main and basically kind of the underground sewer, storm drain, lateral. And then, you know, to a certain extent, even some of the paving projects, you know, once we identify and we do the public outreach and kind of explain to the residents of, you know, how it would be impacted, you know, we would develop a plan for repaving. And so that there's kind of limited amount of design changes that we could do at least for some of the paving rehab work. However, say for instance on you know, a traffic signal or a new rapid flashing beacon, that you know those are the type of things that it appears that the community wants, you know, a lot of input and a lot of feedback, or provide a lot of feedback. You know, those type of things. Or if we wanted to do a roundabout, let's say, you know, those are the type of things I would envision that would probably at least require the 3 check-ins, because I think people are going to want to, you know, at least have that opportunity to discuss. In some cases, you know, what we have seen, and I've seen it even in T&C, where we could have that something scheduled on the T&C. Unfortunately, they weren't aware of it, or, you know, they couldn't attend that meeting to really provide their comments. So having a multiple check-in does allow other people, you know, an opportunity. However, you know, it on the other side is it, you know, can extend the project deadline, you know, for several months.
Okay, no, thank you. And I would just say, you know, it's a great place to start. And if it ends up being too much, we can take it down from there. So great, thank you.
All right, thank you, Councilmember Dugan. Vice Mayor McDowell.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you, Stephen, for all the time and effort you put into this process. And I really liked your slides and the flow charts. I think that was really valuable. My question for you is regarding the public check-in process. Could you kind of define that a little bit? Is that Transportation and Circulation Commission? Is that holding special Zoom meetings with the public or doing something at, I don't know, a community center? What does that look like, or does it look different in each check-in process?
You know, what I would envision is obviously kind of the more controversial or maybe the more detailed type of projects that, it has a lot of interest. Those, we probably would even consider kind of doing like the public meeting, if you will. How we envision like TNC would be involved, we probably, before we take something to council, we want to actually touch base with TNC, as it relates to transportation related issues, actually get their comments, show them what we're planning to do, get their comments, and then go to council, say for at the 65%, go to council, and we could share what the TNC comments are within the staff report. And then at least then council has the benefit of what TNC had said, as well as what the public has also said. And so that's the type of thing I would say. For instance, if it were sewer main work, that probably would not go to TNC because it just affects maybe a small street. However, I do believe that we should continue to have that outreach, whether it's, public mailings, maybe even do the door hangers, and maybe do a check-in at the 65%, again, just to ensure that, we touch base. For perhaps the larger projects, let's say we do a large traffic signal, say somewhere in the community where it really is going to be, although it might be helpful, it may impact some of the circulation measures. So I would envision that, could happen to either be a Zoom or perhaps a community meeting.
Okay, great. Thank you so much, Stephen.
Thank you, Stephen. So my takeaway from this is that kind of the further along you get in the project and after the contract is awarded and the design work is done, any changes in scope can be very costly, and we could lose out on grant awards as well as cause greater project delays. And your proposal here tonight is around after that initial community feedback and initial design work, after getting feedback again from staff, that you go back out to the public to do a check-in, just to do one last kind of vetting of it before you move into the higher cost portion of the project. Is that correct?
That is correct, yes.
Okay, great. So from my perspective, I think obviously we recognize which is terrific, our community is very engaged and very committed to our community and very passionate about how we move forward. So I appreciate your willingness to do this. My thinking around and I'm aligned with what you're saying, which is around the fact that if there are capital improvements that are ultimately going to be hidden from view, right, that will have very little impact on the way community members move through our community, that wouldn't necessarily rise to the level of needing this type of a check-in. But it's for those projects, right, where we're going to have, our way of, moving through the community will have to change or be altered in some way. At which point where this type of a check-in would rise to the occasion. Is that fair to say? Is that what you're proposing?
That is what I'm proposing, yes.
Great. Okay. All right. Thank you. All right. I see Councilmember Collins has his hand up.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just very quickly. Thank you, Stephen. It was a very good presentation, and I like your proposal. You mentioned one very, very low-tech thing that I think will be most important to a lot of people, and that is the concept of door hangers. It's almost as good as knocking on their door. So I hope that'll be part of the process.
Yes,
thank you.
It is, yes.
All right, thank you. Crystal, any members of the public wish to make comment on this item?
No, I don't see any hand. Oh, yep, one hand just shot up. Sonia Elks, you should be able to unmute.
Yes, thank you. Amazing presentation, Stephen. Thank you. And I just wanted to express my appreciation for the public outreach and the very amazing process that the San Carlos Ave project followed. And I think that's part of why I was caught so off guard by the subsequent project, but I don't think that will continue to be a problem. So I'm really grateful for all that you're doing. And I also wanted to say at the last Transportation Commission meeting, I really appreciated the last several ones were transparent and clear and helpful and communicative. It was really outstanding, and I very much enjoyed working with your engineers and you and commission. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sonia. And then we do have one more hand up, David Tusman. You should be able to unmute.
Hello.
There you go.
Thank you for that presentation. I thought that was really good response to public wanting input into their community. It totally makes sense. And I look forward to seeing how this turns out. I want to note that often with these sorts of ongoing public input outreach, you tend to get not exactly a representative group from the community, largely because certain folks of certain demographics or age or employment have more time on their hands and opportunity and exposure to give that public input. And so I'd encourage the staff and council to think about how can we keep in mind maybe some metrics to take of what are the demographics of the public input that we're getting? Is that truly representative of the community? And when I say community, I mean people who live here, people who work here, which are often not so engaged or maybe outreach to by something like a door hanger, and not just business community outreach to maybe the business owners, but again the people who work here, because they travel through the community too, and they are an important part of it. And of course, homeowners and renters, young folks, old folks, all that. So I encourage to maybe set some checkpoints where we can get metrics and compare those against to what our community makeup actually is to see if our public input is representative of the public as a whole. Thanks.
Thank you, David.
Thank you. And that is it.
Okay, thank you. All right, next we'll move to reports to council. Receive an update on the council chamber reopening plan. And I understand Crystal Mui, City Clerk, you'll be presenting on this item this evening.
Yes, if I can just get the presentation up. There it goes. Okay. Good evening, Honorable Mayor and Council Member. I'm Crystal Moy, San Carlos City Clerk, and I'm going to be presenting the proposed council chamber reopening plan tonight. Okay, so by way of background for our members of the public who are joining us tonight, on March 4th, 2020, California proclaimed the state of emergency in response to the COVID-19 pandemic. Shortly after, on March 17th, Governor Newsom issued an executive order that suspended certain provisions of the Brown Act to allow for public meetings to take place virtually in order to decrease the risk to officials and the public. So since that date, our council and commission meetings have been conducted virtually via Zoom with no physical meeting location open to the public. The state anticipates that on June 15, California will fully open its economy. However, it's unclear at this time how this reopening may impact the provisions of the Brown Act that's currently suspended. Our goal with reopening the council chambers is to have a safe physical location to conduct our public meetings while allowing the public the options to either attend in person or to continue participating and providing public comments remotely. Our IT team has been diligently working with a third-party vendor to upgrade the equipment in the council chambers in order to accommodate this hybrid meeting approach. The city will also take safety measures in alignment with any local and state guidance that may be in place at the time of reopening our chambers. And these measures may include performing temperature checks with our touchless thermal scanners before entering the chambers, wearing masks and having disposable ones available should anyone need it, and properly distancing seats both on the dais as well as in the audience. Where possible, we'll minimize high touch points and surfaces. An example of that would be to put a process in place to eliminate the need for public who are attending in person to fill out a public comment form and turning that in. We'll also be using disinfectant wipes to wipe down surfaces in the chambers before each meeting, and having hand sanitizers available on the speaker podium as well as on the dais. And staff is closely monitoring potential changes that may occur on a statewide or county level. And if needed, we'll update the proposed plans to follow guidelines and restrictions, and we'll, of course, update the council accordingly. We believe this plan will improve and enhance public access to our meetings while keeping everyone safe. And so at this time, we are proposing that we move forward with this plan to commence on August 23rd. And this will allow staff time to prepare and test our system over the summer recess. And so tonight staff is seeking council direction or any comments that you might have on this proposed plan. And that concludes my presentation. I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Thank you, Crystal. Councilmember Dugan.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And yeah, my only comment, Crystal, is I can't wait. Sounds great. Let's do it.
Great. I appreciate, Crystal, all the effort that staff has given consideration to this. I know I'm hearing more and more that people are just very tired of Zoom and very anxious to get back into person. And it seems to me a very thoughtful approach that takes, a very safe route to that eventuality. And I particularly appreciate the hybrid approach. I think we've all observed that we have, really more engagement from different community members than we have in past with the Zoom approach. So I'm glad that we're maintaining that as well. Vice Mayor McDowell.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you, Crystal, for the work that has gone into this. I just want to echo the mayor's comments about inclusivity and the fact that we're going to make up a new system now going forward to do a hybrid, and I'm excited about that. I think it's a great system to allow people to participate remotely, from parents putting children to bed to those who are homebound to those who want to participate but it's just too late. So I really appreciate the work that's going to go into figuring out our new system over the summer. So thank you.
Councilmember Collins.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you, Crystal. You've done an incredible job. I don't know how many balls you've had to juggle in the air. And I'm really looking forward to getting back to it. So my only regret is that I can't turn off my camera and eat cookies. So, but I'll give it up. Thank you.
Councilmember Rack.
Ron, you can still eat cookies on the dais. As long as you share. Thank you, Madam Mayor. Crystal, thanks for the great work on this. I think it's a reasonable proposal, and I look forward to seeing implementation as you kind of watch what's going on. And thanks for all the work on it.
Great. So, Crystal, I might suggest too that we might do a little mini rehearsal for those of us who wish to do so in advance of that first comeback, so we make sure we understand how to work with the technology. And I get the gavel sound just right. So if we could maybe work that out in advance, that would be helpful.
Yes, luckily, if everything goes according to plan, council's participation in it won't change much from pre-pandemic time. So, but yeah, I'll definitely reach out to see if you're interested in having a little trial.
All right. Thank you.
With that said, we do have a public comment if you'd like to take that now.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
David Tusman, you should be able to unmute. There you go.
Hello. Hey, David Tusman again. Thanks for the presentation. Looks like a great plan, and I'll echo the mayor's comments and echo of the vice mayor's comments that I think keeping the hybrid form that continues the breadth of community input that we can get from folks who can otherwise not attend in person. And I hope that that continues indefinitely. And I guess maybe a question is that the default that we'll continue to have public comments through Zoom or some remote public comment available? Or is there some set time where this will expire and we'll go completely back to pre-COVID and it'll have to be revisited? I don't know if the council could maybe forward that question to staff. But again, thanks for the presentation and thank you for continuing the remote public comment. That's a great step towards equity. Thanks.
Thank you, David. Crystal or Jeff, could you address the question with respect to regulations around the hybrid approach?
Sure. I believe it would be our intention to have the change be permanent, with the one caveat that, there may be changes that need to take place at the state level in terms of the Brown Act to make that permanent. We're not really sure, so we're just kind of watching and waiting, and we'll certainly support those changes if they're necessary to make them permanent, but we're going to be prepared to do it permanent. And I believe from the feedback we've gotten from our city council that you'd like to see it permanent. So as long as the state law allows it, we'll continue to receive public comment through all the available channels that we have with our community.
All right, thank you. Crystal, any additional members of the community wish to make a comment?
No further hands.
All right, thank you. All right, so we'll move to item 10A, consideration of adopting a resolution approving the 2021 through 2023 residential and commercial solid waste collection service rates, including unscheduled services pursuant to Proposition 218. I understand this will be presented by Public Works Director Stephen Machida, and there's a couple of guests with him this evening. Stephen?
Yes, good evening, Madam Mayor, City Council Member Stephen Machida, Public Works Director. So before you tonight is actually to conduct a public hearing on the solid waste rates for year 2021, 2022, and 2023. At your March 22nd meeting, you set this day as the public hearing. And so tonight I have Alex Handlers from Bartle Wells, as well as Joe Lamariana, who are also available Alex will actually do the presentation, and Joe and I will be available to answer any questions that you may have. So with that, I will turn it over to Alex.
Oh, great. And hello, everybody. So tonight, this is kind of more of just a summary presentation. I know we discussed a lot of these issues back, I think it was March 22nd at the council meeting. So tonight's more of a summary. Obviously, if there's questions, happy to answer. So next slide. Oh, great. So a quick background, the solid waste utility is self-supporting enterprise. The source of revenues comes from the city's solid waste rates. So the rates need to be set at adequate levels to fund the cost of service. And unfortunately, as with all enterprises, the city's facing a number of increasing costs of service that are facing all the agencies in the area that I'll briefly highlight in a minute. What's being proposed is a series of 3 6% rate increases, kind of continuing the city's longstanding practice of doing small gradual rate increases year after year when necessary to keep the rates in line with the cost of service. And also just refreshing everyone that the city's rates are in the middle range compared to other agencies out there. And for folks who don't know, the city's doesn't provide the service directly. That's done by Recology under contract. They do the collection, the hauling, disposal, and they also do the quarterly billing. So the next slide shows a summary of a rate survey for the lowest users of, yeah, there it is, great. And this is for folks who are the smallest cart size, the 20-gallon cart size. Almost 25% of the city's residents are at this level. And you can see you're in the middle of the pack. And on the subsequent slide, there's a similar survey for the 32-gallon cart size on the next slide. And that one is about 58% of the city's accounts. Again, you're just a tad higher than the median there. So altogether, almost 80 to 85% of your customers within those two usage groups. Moving on to the next slide, I mentioned there's a number of factors that are increasing the cost of service, why the city's rates need to keep up. And I'm not going to cover all these in detail. I will mention the city's got a new contract with Recology that was recently amended in the last year or two that has higher costs of service for disposing of the waste at the Ox Mountain landfill. Those costs have gone up. And in addition, the city's facing a number of, not the city, I should say, the whole wastewater enterprise with South Bay Waste Management Authority. There are a number of new regulations that are affecting solid waste operations, including SB 1383 organic waste compliance. There's new air quality management district regulations that are adding costs for compliance. And also there are a few contracts that South Bay Waste Management Authority has with some of the providers out there that have been on pretty favorable terms for all of the agencies in the area. But unfortunately, those contracts are coming to an end. They need to be renegotiated, and there's already indication that the costs are going to be higher than what they previously were. And on top of that, there's ongoing cost inflation that's built into the contract also. So on the next slide, basically what we did was develop some financial projections. We worked with the city and with South Bay Waste Management Authority to try to put everything in there using reasonable estimates. I'll point out currently the city's rates are a little bit below the cost of service. And what we did is look at a number of rate scenarios that were discussed at the last meeting on March 22nd. Some of them had higher rate increases in the near term, tapering down. Some had lower in the near term with higher rate increases in the longer term. And the direction that was received was kind of a more midline approach with 6% rate increases for the current year and also for the next 2 years. I'll point out, historically, the city adopts solid waste rate increases on January 1, but because the current rate increase has been deferred and due to the billing cycle, it actually wouldn't become into effect until August 1st in the current year. So folks are only going to have to pay the first increase for half a year, but subsequently the rate increases would get back on their January 1st cycle. The way the rates are being adopted, it has to be according to the Prop 218 process. The city mailed out notices of the proposed rates to all the ratepayers more than 45 days before tonight's public hearing. And as I've mentioned before, and I'm sure you've heard before, under Prop 218, water, sewer, and garbage rates are subject to what's called majority protest, meaning if more than 50% of the property owners submit written protests, then you can't move ahead with a rate increase. But that's rarely the case. If there's not a majority protest, the council has the discretion to adopt rates up to the levels included in the notice. The next slide shows the actual rates that are being proposed. Now, these are the rates that everyone received in the mail through the city's notices. It's really the top two lines there that cover, it's about 82% of your homeowners out there. And then, for example, for the 32-gallon cart size, their current charge is $38.65. That would increase to $40.97 on August 1st, then to $43.43 January 1, 22, and to $46 and change in January 1, 23. I won't go over the rest of them. I'll spare you that. So that kind of covers what we wanted to mention about the proposed rates. The other thing that the city wanted to make sure everyone knows about is the city's rate reduction program. Not every agency has this, but the city does offer a 10% discount to the solid waste rates based on income eligibility. And the way it typically works is folks would, to get on the city's program, folks would automatically be eligible if they're on PG&E's CARE program. So in here, if someone thinks they may be eligible, is contact information for PG&E, so you can get onto their CARE program, which gives a discount to the electricity rates and also qualifies you for the 10% discount for the city's solid waste rates. And there's also some information on this slide here. Folks can go to the city's website or call the city because you can apply directly through the city as well. And the other thing I wanted to mention is the city also has a similar program on the sewer side. So if someone is not on the program and they get on this, they're going to be getting discounts for electricity, solid waste, and sewer. So everyone's encouraged to look into that if they think they might be eligible. And that pretty much concludes what the summary presentation was going to cover. So turn it back to the city in case there's any questions or comments.
Sure. Madam Mayor, I'd like to add one thing, kind of in anticipation of the solid waste rates coming. We actually advertise or sent out notice in the Recology bill last January, as well as just this past April, kind of notifying the community about the solid waste rate reduction. So, we tried to actually provide that information early or during this process to let people know that if they're eligible, they certainly are welcome to apply for that waste reduction plan. And additionally, as Alec had also indicated, we to date, as of today, we only received 2 written protests about the increase for the solid waste rate. So with that, I'll turn it back to you.
All right. Thank you, Stephen. Thank you, Alex. Councilmember Rack.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Alex, thanks for the great presentation, Stephen, and I know Joe's on the line as well, and for all the work around this. I appreciate it. I just had one question on the rate reduction program. Do we know how many people take advantage of that program in San Carlos?
Basically we checked on that. We have about 122 residents are participating in that program.
And do we know what that cost is to us?
I don't have that, but I could get that information.
Okay, right, that'd be helpful. I don't have any issue with their concerns with the rate reductions. We've talked about it, and I think it's a smart move the way we're going forward. Thank you.
Councilmember Dugan.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor. And we covered this pretty thoroughly on our March 22nd meeting, so my comments will be brief. We're just proposing flat 6% raises. I know it's just a couple of dollars per category there. I just tend to think, we have, as I understand from the last meeting, well over $1 million in this reserve fund. The city's otherwise in strong financial shape. I just think it's the wrong year to do a 6% increase. I would have preferred a structure different than that, flat this year with perhaps more of a catch up or dig a little deeper in our reserve until we're sure we're out of this crisis. So I didn't support this rate structure on March 22nd, and I won't be supporting it this evening either.
Thank you, Councilmember Dugan. So any further questions from council? Then we'll go to public comment and then come back to council comment discussion before motion. Right, Crystal, are there any members of the public who wish to speak?
I do not see any hands raised.
All right. So any
Madam
further
Mayor?
discussion? Yes.
I was just going to say I was going to move to close the public hearing.
Okay. All right, Crystal, can you call the roll?
I'm sorry, I didn't catch who seconded that.
I did.
Adam, thank you. Councilmember Collins?
Yes.
Councilmember Rack?
Yep.
Councilmember Dugan?
Yes.
Vice Mayor McDowell?
Yes.
And Mayor Palmer-Lohan?
Yes. All right, so any further discussion from council? I might just suggest, if it's possible, if there's some way to communicate about the discount program to the community, maybe in an upcoming, one of the electronic newsletters or some such, just by way of trying to remind people that it's available to them.
Thank you, Mayor. Mayor, we did plan to do that in the next newsletter that will be going to homes.
Great minds. Thank you. All right. All right. So with that, I'll entertain a motion.
Madam Mayor.
Go
ahead. Go ahead, Adam.
I move to adopt. Everyone wants to do this. See, I move to adopt Resolution 2021-43, a resolution of the City Council of the City of San Carlos approving the 2021, 2022, and 2023 residential and commercial solid waste collection service rates, including unscheduled services.
Second.
All right, Crystal, can you do a roll call?
Vice Mayor McDowell?
Yes.
Councilmember Dugan?
No.
Councilmember Collins?
Yes.
Councilmember Rack?
Yes.
And Mayor Parmer Lohan?
Yes. All right. I just want to do a quick time check. Is everybody okay, or is there a wish for a quick break before we go to the next item?
I'm good. We're almost done, I think.
Yeah.
Let's power through.
Careful.
Yeah.
All right.
I didn't say that. Take it back.
All right. So the next item is new business. Consideration of adopting resolution approving an addendum to the elected and appointed officials code of conduct and ethics policy to establish attendance policy for city-sponsored community forums to comply with the requirements of the Brown Act. And we'll be taking a presentation from Greg Rubens, our city attorney. Greg?
Well, Madam Mayor, members of the City Council, tonight, this is an item you may be familiar with because it was on the agenda last time, and so I'm going to try and keep this brief for you. We've, over the years, when the city has a city-sponsored event, we've, more than a quorum of or more than 2 council members wish to attend, we can sometimes run into communications problems and it can create some awkward moments when more than 2 council members or commissioners show up at a city-sponsored event. The reason this is significant is because when it's a city-sponsored event, if it's not a noticed public meeting, we can only have 2 council members or commissioners at that meeting. When it's a public forum or it's a noticed event, that limitation doesn't apply. So what we're trying to do is manage and create a default that the mayor and the vice mayor or the chair or the vice chair of a commission are the default members who are able to attend. And then we've created a process that's sort of a first come, first served notification that if there is the ability for another council member or commissioner to attend that city-sponsored forum, that the city clerk would notify everyone at the same time, and the first person to respond would have an opportunity to attend that event. We always have the opportunity to call one of these community forums if it's significant, a public meeting, and send out a notice. But this is to cover those situations where for policy reasons or convenience or otherwise, it's just not appropriate to have it as a formally noticed public meeting. So that's my presentation. You have a resolution and a proposed policy change that describes what I've just suggested.
Thank you, Greg. Vice Mayor McDowell.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you, Greg. I appreciate you bringing up the fact that we can all still attend some meetings together. I know we did it for the Home for All, and I hate, for us to miss out on an opportunity, but I certainly understand the need to kind of better organize us. I guess my concern is, and I'll use an example, this coming Wednesday, the Chamber of Commerce is hosting a forum for downtown business owners. And in my mind, it might be more appropriate for the downtown subcommittee members to attend that meeting because they're kind of the subject matter experts. So I'm trying to think of circumstances where council subcommittees who are already doing work on certain issues might take precedence to attend something. So I don't know if that's a question for Greg or a question for my colleagues on kind of where we fall on that.
Let me just make a clarifying. I'm sorry.
Yeah, go ahead. After
just
you.
a clarifying point that when an outside organization sponsors a community forum, the limitation does not apply. It's only when it's a city-sponsored forum. So we could, but in answer to your question, Vice Mayor, we could look at the policy and create a different default than the mayor and the vice mayor. But the intent is to try and limit it to the two people.
Yeah, so I mean, I read it, actually the way that Vice Mayor McDowell proposes it should be. So was it intended to be always the mayor and the vice mayor, or was the intention for kind of general broader meetings? Could you clarify? Because I think I was getting caught up when it talked about subcommittees and there was a chair and a vice chair.
Well, what the definitions come out of our municipal code of the different committees that we have. So we have the city council, we have commissions, which is like the planning commission, the transportation commission, and then we have a committee that's the one committee, the residential design review committee. So we were trying to capture all of those different types of committees that we have in the city.
Mm-hmm. And in terms of notice, so sometimes I know that there's plans to do these, but I don't like, for example, like how would we organize this in such a way that the information about an upcoming, as it's maybe in the planning stages, perhaps would you notify the mayor and the vice mayor before it becomes public so we can sort out who's going to be in attendance, or would that notification happen simultaneously with the public? Because some of these things have a short turnaround. For example, the most recent eucalyptus tree, I think that came out later than the housing, and they're both on the same night. So it seems like this coming Wednesday, there's a lot going on. So how do we stage this in such a way that we can communicate and people can plan accordingly?
Yeah, very good question. I think what we were trying to accomplish with this is most of the time the city forums have a bit of a lead time for us to organize them. For example, the Eucalyptus Street public city-sponsored events are coming up, and those have been on the calendar for a while. So, but the default for those would be the mayor and the vice mayor. But let's say perhaps the vice mayor, not picking on the vice mayor here, is going on a vacation or something, when we're allowed to do that again more easily. And the vice mayor could let the clerk know, hey, I can't go to that event, I'm out of town. And then the notice would go out so that the other council members would have a fair opportunity to attend. And maybe it's not a perfect system, but we thought about it pretty hard about how practically it might work for the council and the commissions to be able to attend the city-sponsored events.
Okay, so I think what I'm hearing you say is that you would coordinate calendars in advance potentially.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we would think that the council, I think, is informed. At some point, the council assumed in this policy, the council is informed of these community events, and that's when the default would apply unless someone communicated to the city clerk that they could not attend. And then we tried to cover even a situation where it was at the last minute, and the council could designate somebody at the last minute. The clerk would be contacted and a notice would go out quickly. And then we tried to cover the situations where there was a lot of lead time, so that if the mayor or the vice mayor knew they couldn't attend, then at a meeting there might be an announcement, hey, I can't attend, who else would like to go? And you can decide as a council for in those types of circumstances.
Okay, thank you. All right, we'll go Councilmember Dugan and then back to Vice Mayor McDowell.
Yeah, great. Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'll just say first, I think that's a good idea, Vice Mayor McDowell had. I think setting the default generally on subcommittees when it's relevant makes a lot of sense. So I support that. I think I would say it in all cases would be the mayor's prerogative, though. If the mayor did want to go or otherwise reassign, I think I would be comfortable leaving that as the mayor's prerogative. And then, Greg, I had a question. Are there any Brown Act implications of us just talking amongst ourselves, merely about attendance, not talking about any substantive aspect of an upcoming meeting, just amongst ourselves? I could talk to 2 other council members to see who wants to go to this meeting.
Well, I think that the issue of there's an appearance of, if you were talking with one other council member or 2 other council members, there might be an appearance of a problem. But I think you're right. If it's scheduling, a lot of times you're not really making a decision or participating in a decision or trying to influence a decision. You're just trying to figure out who's going. But I think that sometimes that can lead to, concerns that you were talking about something else. And so you just have to be careful of that.
Okay.
And remember the admonition about emails and everything else, they're public records. So if a communication strays one bit, that you can get into a little bit of trouble on that, possibly.
Thank you.
So if it's okay, I'd just like to take a moment to just discuss an example. For example, we have this meeting coming up Wednesday night on Eucalyptus Avenue, and we went ahead and invited the mayor and the vice mayor, just following this policy, even though we were going to talk about it tonight. If one of them would have told us, I'm not going to attend, then we would have gone through this process of reaching out to Crystal to then reach out to the other council members. There isn't a subcommittee that seems appropriate for this, so that's the way we would handle a meeting like that.
Thank you, Tara.
And we could bring, if the council, if there's a consensus on the council that they would like another scenario where there is a standing subcommittee involved, then those subcommittee members could go. There was a discussion we had about sometimes standing committees are Brown Act bodies. Ad hoc committees are not. So we'd have to kind of put that nuance into the policy.
Thank you, Greg. Vice Mayor McDowell, I see you've had your hand up for a while.
Thank you. I actually had a follow-up question about the Brown Act. I'm wondering 2 things. Can we have a shared spreadsheet Google Doc where every event is listed and then the mayor and I can sign up? I understand that the mayor should probably open all of the events. That's, part of the fun of the job and being there. But as vice mayor, if we have a housing meeting coming up on Wednesday and, Laura and I could sign up for it, but then I could see that the 2 housing subcommittee members were interested, I might relinquish my spot so that a housing committee member could listen in. So I'm wondering if there's kind of a one-stop shop where we can see all of the upcoming events and then each of us can sign up and voice our interest. There's also, I sometimes find out about these community workshops via the same way that everybody else does. Mm-hmm. And I'm not, as Laura mentioned, it does take some scheduling for some of us to be able to make it to all of these. I actually need to talk to Laura about Wednesday night because I'm not sure how we're going to attend all those events and what her plan is. So it would be really nice to have a document that all of us would have visibility into where all of the events are and we could all sign up and kind of voice our interest and then go from there. But I don't know, is that a Brown Act violation if we're just putting our last names in boxes?
Well, I think if it's operated by staff, the information is, I mean, it would be a public document, so the information probably would need to be available. And so I think we'd want to assess whether that's something the council would want to do and have the public have access to something like that. But, and we may be able, there may be a workaround. I'm not sure if something like that would, we could make it not a public document. But there, if it is desired or the council thinks it's a good idea to have that be public, maybe not instantly publicly accessible, but publicly accessible in the sense that if someone asks for it, that we might be able to work around it, and that would not be a Brown Act violation. The only Brown Act issue I see is the potential that this schedule would be used to communicate, and I guess I don't see that happening with some sort of a spreadsheet or a Google Calendar where people can put their name in. I mean, we do that for subcommittee meetings with doodle polls and other things that are out there. So, I mean, there is a way that we, as long as staff's operating it and not the council's not operating it, I think that would not violate the Brown Act.
Thank you. Councilmember Rack.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just would want to weigh in. I think John mentioned something about this, just in terms of the the subcommittees when it's relevant. Sort of, if we can develop some sort of process, I think that would make sense, because if those subcommittees are going to be making recommendations to the full council, and there's things that make sense. I mean, I'd happy to defer to the mayor's discretion on this too, but having some sort of process would, to me, make sense.
Yeah, so I think the good news here is that it sounds like everybody has an interest in wanting to participate in these workshops. So I'm wondering, and the other thing that I've observed is that it seems like staff is always doing at least a couple on the same topic, right? So so it sounds like, Greg, I think I think the feedback that we're giving is maybe is there a possibility that staff could go, or what we're saying is we want staff to go back and just take another swipe at this to try to figure out how we can do this in such a way. So, for example, I also enjoy opening the meetings. I also can't always stay around for the whole thing. So potentially somebody else then could come into the meeting after, for example, the mayor departs, right? After they say a few words. In the Zoom age, right, we're also recording these. We also need to be mindful, which is great because I went back and listened to the ones that I couldn't stay for the whole time. When we move into potentially going back to workshops in person, right, where they may or may not be recorded, that could be a little bit more of a challenge. Assuming, well, but maybe we always do. I can't recall, but I think what you're getting is there a way that we could do this in such a way that there's appropriate representation and opportunity for council members to sign up for this? Am I capturing that correctly from rest of council? I don't want to speak, but I think that's what I'm hearing, but I don't want to misrepresent what I think I'm hearing you all say.
Well, I'm perfectly glad to bring a different policy that kind of addresses some of those general concerns, and then have the council take another look at it. I don't think there's a big rush on this item. It's just something that we're anticipating, with community meetings coming up for the rest of the year and the reopening of the state, that we wanted to bring a policy to you for you to review.
Okay.
So I'm glad to bring something else back. What I heard was consideration of subcommittee members as one of the alternates, in addition to the mayor, a procedure for allowing, when we have a community city sponsored meeting well in advance, that council members can sign up or make their preference known, at least that they would like to attend. And then we could have, and then another option is when the mayor is just ceremonially opening the meeting, that we have an option for 2 other council members to attend after the mayor departs.
Yeah, I think that captures it. I'm not hearing any additional objections, and I'm seeing some head nods. So
okay, thank you.
All right.
The only thing I would add to that, Greg, and I think it's what Sarah suggested, was almost like there's like a running list of these meetings, because I agree it can be kind of hard to keep up with them all, and even capturing them when I see them. If there was kind of a list with our signups next to it, I think it would add a lot of rationality to all this.
Okay, staff will work on bringing something back to you at the earliest possible meeting for you to reconsider.
Great. All right. Thank you, Greg. Appreciate it. Okay. All right. The next item is agenda item 12. Consider agendizing an item directing the city manager to go out to bid for lobbyist services.
Oh, this was mine. So I just, we had the presentation, I guess, 2 weeks ago, and I started thinking like, it seems like we haven't gone out to look at what we're getting for services and whether we need services or not, and what we're spending on it for what we're getting. So I just thought it would be worthwhile to sort of set up a process and to sort of look about maybe potentially going out to bid or looking at getting a request for proposals to see what we might get for our money, whether it's worth it or not, and to be able to make a decision as a council, because it sounds like we've just been renewing without sort of, looking at it and seeing what's out there.
Can I ask a question of Jeff during this process, or do I just need to say one way or the other? A clarifying question of when we last went out to bid.
You could ask that question.
Okay. Jeff, when did we last go out to bid?
I think it's been 9 or 10 years since we've been out to bid for these services.
Okay, thank you. I would support Adam's agenda setting item to discuss this.
I would just ask Jeff if he feels this needs to be rebid. I have no sense of how these services compare or what we pay. I don't know anything about it, actually.
Well, I guess I'll answer that in 2 ways, which you'll probably not find at all helpful. One, I don't think there's ever a problem with going out to bid for services that the city is purchasing. It's a good practice. I'm also comfortable and confident in the services that we're getting. So, either way that the council wants to go here, I don't think that there's a wrong choice. And we're happy to do either one. Yeah.
And Ron, before you go, can I just say I'm not opposed to keeping the current services. I just think it's a good practice to kind of go out and check what's out there every once in a while.
And how much do we pay, Jeff?
I think it's between $2,000 and $3,000 a month for those services, approximately.
Councilmember Collins.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Greg, how much can we say with regard to this in terms of our own personal experience, or do we have to wait until we get into a formal agenda item?
Yeah, I think tonight it's about setting the agenda, and I think you can ask questions of staff, but I think it's not time for discussion of the merits of the proposal.
All right, then I'm just going to say I'm not interested in visiting it. I think we're doing fine.
All right, and I'm Councilmember Dugan. I can't remember what your position was on the matter. I apologize. Did you say?
Honestly, I'm I don't think I know enough to have a firm position, so I will never stand in the way of putting anything to bid. So, I mean, if the majority here wants to put it to bid, I support that. I haven't heard anything compelling on why we need to do that. It's not a huge expense, it seems.
Yeah, I guess that's my feeling as well. I'm sort of on the fence about this one, so I'm and yeah, so it sounds like Vice Mayor McDowell and Councilmember Rack want to do this, but I'm not sure if you're a yes or no, John. So
can I ask Madam Mayor the same question, or it doesn't work that way?
Well, I mean, I think I'm not inclined to pursue it just because again, I'm thinking about the staff time involved in this and compared to the expense that the outlay every year. That's my personal feeling.
Okay. Yeah, I guess I don't, final question for Jeff. Is this a significant distraction for your staff? Is this a problem to put it out to bid?
No, I couldn't say that it would cause problems to put it out to bid. I mean, it's definitely work in preparing the RFP and reviewing and potentially interviewing, which I think is the right approach if we do this. So there's time involved, certainly, but it's not a lengthy process, and I wouldn't expect it to be a cumbersome, detailed RFP like you might do for design services or those type of things.
Okay, thank you, Jeff. Then, it's been 9 years. That does seem like a long time without putting something out to bid. I don't see that we have any issue with our current services. I would imagine, they'll be in a lead position given all their good work and experience, but putting things to bid is obviously a healthy process. And if we have council members who feel like it should go out to bid, I'll support that. So let's put this on the agenda.
All right.
Okay.
All right.
We'll go ahead and do that. And the good news is that you'll actually be able to debate this next time, because it sounds like there's some different points of view. So that should be an interesting discussion, but we'll get it on probably one of your next two agendas, depending on how we balance things out tomorrow at the exec team, because I do believe we're planning on having the budget adoption at the next meeting.
Thank you. All right.
Madam Mayor, before we finish, can I ask one question? And if this is not appropriate for this time, Greg, tell me, or Madam. When we were having the presentation on the trash, solid waste rates, it just got me thinking, like, it would be interesting, I think, to agendize whether we could expand the rate reduction program for those in need. 10% to me seems like, if I did my math right, we're talking about spending $1,000 a year or so. If 122 people, we could make that rate 20, 30, 40% reduction for people based on if they're already qualified under PG&E and other things. It's not like an extra cost for us. And I don't know if that, it seems like it'd be a couple $1,000, which could have a big impact for some residents. So I just wanted to, if I can raise it now, if not, I'll try to agendize it next time.
Yeah, that would be, and that's something, the way solid waste rates are set, the discount is actually from the general fund. It can't be paid for by the other ratepayers. So we would have to figure out how much increasing the subsidy would be and bring that to you for a separate agenda item. I think I think our protocol is that you bring it up at a meeting and bring that up so that the council can think about it.
Okay, that's fine. Jeff, I'd like to put it on the next meeting then as an agenda setting item.
We'll add that to the next meeting under agenda setting.
Okay. All right. All right. Are there any other topics for discussion for future agenda setting at this point? Okay, I might add, Jeff, if we could take a look at some of the adjacent cities have a requirement by some of the establishments to hire security guards if their businesses are determined a nuisance. And I'm just wondering if that might be something that we could take a look at on a future agenda.
Okay, you'd like that placed under agenda setting?
Yes.
For the council to consider at the next meeting? We'll do that as well.
Yes, yeah, that'd be great. Good. All right. Well, if there are no additional comments, this meeting is now adjourned. Thank you, everyone.
All right.
Great. Good night, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Good night.